Good morning. Thank you all for coming. It's always great to be in New Haven, and thank you to the Greater New Haven Community Foundation for hosting us today, and to all the partners here as well. And a special thanks to Kevin Brown. Please join us up here for all of your work co-chairing the state's Civic Education and Media Literacy Task Force. Today, I'm proud to introduce the Power of Civics, a new online learning platform designed to help people understand how government works and how to engage with government when they have a need. Civics is all about how you can play a role in the decisions that affect your life and your community. Yet, when I travel around the state, I've heard government is too complicated to understand, or worse, some people feel like their voice doesn't matter and that after casting their ballot, no one pays attention. Even people who learned about civics in school admit that they have no idea how committees are structured in the legislature, or how to get a bill passed, or they don't know what positions are on the ballot in the municipal election, and they don't know what we like to call civics you can use. When something is impacting your family, how do you weigh in? How do you serve your state or town in a volunteer role? What level of government is the right place to address the issues that are on your mind? So whether I'm talking to students or seniors in cities or in small towns, what I've learned is that people care deeply about their communities and they want to become more involved, but they don't know where or how to get started. And that's why we built the Power of Civics Online, a free, interactive, self-paced platform that helps people navigate government and civic life in a practical, approachable way. We like to say it's kind of like a civics GPS, helping you figure out where you are, where you want to go, and how to get there. And the platform covers 6 main areas for local, state, and federal government. An introduction to each level of government to learn the lay of the land and where decisions are made, how to engage with a community, whether it's writing a letter to the editor or participating in a local community group, how to reach out to candidates and campaigns, and how to reach out to share your ideas once someone becomes elected, the legislative process and how to become a part of it, and elections themselves, all the mechanics of getting vote ready. Each section has step-by-step guides with videos, checklists, other resources, and a fun fact. All of the actors in the videos and photos are Connecticut residents, college students, registrars, town clerks, volunteers, and even a few members of my staff who might have been voluntold. So you just might spot someone you know. So I invite all Connecticut residents to visit powerofcivics.ct.gov to explore the platform and share it with anyone else you know who has that question. How do I get started? And because civic engagement gives us a way to move beyond conflict and polarization, I believe it helps us reconnect, build trust, and work together to make our communities, our state, and our nation stronger. So with that, I'd like to introduce our gracious host today, Karen DuBois Walton, President and CEO of the Community Foundation of Greater New Haven. Karen has been a civic champion for years, committed to helping promote civic engagement in New Haven and beyond. Karen.
Thank you, Secretary Thomas, and welcome. It is wonderful to be here and to host you all in the offices of the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven. We are really pleased to stand beside our Secretary of State, our Lieutenant Governor, and our partners, Kevin and Doug. I'm so happy to have you here with us today as we launch this Power of Civics. I love the title, Learn It, Use It, Share It. Here at the Community Foundation, our vision is of a more connected, a more equitable, a more inclusive, and a more philanthropic community. one where everyone has the opportunity to reach their goals economically, in terms of their own health and well-being, in terms of their joy and their sense of connectedness. Civic engagement is really fundamental to that vision because it's how we strengthen democracy, it's how we build belonging, and it's how we ensure that every person in Greater New Haven has a voice in shaping the community that we share. We're proud that the Foundation has signed on as a CEO, a civically engaged organization, and you can find more about that also on Secretary Thomas's site. But that means that we're not just promoting civic participation, we're really seeking to model it. Through our work as a convener, as a collaborator, as an educator, as an investor in community, we bring people together, seeking to heal, seeking to learn, and seeking to act for the common good. The launch of the Power of Civics today offers an incredible new way to support that work, helping individuals, schools, and organizations access the tools and knowledge to strengthen the civic life of our region. We know from our partnership with Data Haven that our community is ready for this. According to the most recent Community Wellbeing Survey, nearly 3/4 of residents in Greater New Haven feel that they can make a positive difference locally, and more than 80% say they trust their neighbors. That's a powerful foundation for collective action. But at the same time, we also recognize that only half of residents report having recently worked with others to solve a community problem. And we know that the understanding of the basics of civics lags well behind where we need it to be. They're reminding us that there is still untapped civic potential here, especially among younger residents and communities that have historically been left out of decision making. And that's where we're excited that platforms like Power of Civics comes in. By making civic education and engagement accessible, relevant, action-oriented, and fun, we help turn that trust into and optimism into participation, into advocacy for housing that's affordable. You know I was going to mention housing. Of course. For food systems that are equitable, for health care that's accessible, for arts that are inclusive, and for an economy that works for all. So today's launch isn't just a website, it's about strengthening the civic infrastructure of our region. It's about building a culture where learning, using, and sharing civic power becomes part of how we live our lives together. So on behalf of the Community Foundation for Greater New Haven, I certainly thank our Secretary of State, our Lieutenant Governor, and all of our partners for their leadership and commitment to deepening civic life in Connecticut. Together, we're investing in the power of people, and that is what will move us truly forward toward a connected, inclusive, equitable, and philanthropic community. So thank you. And am I introducing?
Nope.
You're up. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for also being one of our civically engaged organization partners. Much appreciated. And something you said, most people don't know how to tap into their civic power. And that may have been true for our next speaker once upon a long time ago. He needs no introduction. Doug Glanville is one of the faces of ESPN across the country and a Major League Baseball legend. Lesser known is that he is also a civic leader. Mr. Glanville.
Thank you. All right. Well, it's pretty rare I bat third in any lineup because I was a leadoff guy or bottom of the order, but honor to be here. I mean, it's incredible. I'm very excited about this initiative, and thank you, Lieutenant Governor and the Secretary's office, the Foundation. Really incredible, and nice to meet you, Representative Brown. You know, I think what I wanted to focus on today was the power of storytelling, because that's sort of what led me to this opportunity to work on changing law. And it's a process. And I love Schoolhouse Rock, for everybody who knows that, because that actually came to life. And I came out of it very encouraged that this process can work. But it involved telling stories and sitting and listening and finding out how reciprocal that process is. And so I want to read something. You know, I'm a writer, so I wanted to read something because part of this is a little bit of a tribute to a father and son I recently lost, who are coach and teammate. And I think it shapes exactly what we're talking about, and having community around people that are in your life and maybe you lose in your life, but also transitioning to keep their memory alive in the spirit of what they did for their communities. And so, of course, with baseball, you think about coaches and teammates and years sort of working together and understanding different backgrounds coming together in one place for a common goal. And so I wanted to start off by talking about Eugene and Glenn O'Reilly, who we lost the last 18 months, and they were 18 months apart, so you talk about a father and son. And so I was stunned by that loss, and we talk about father and son, detective and chief of police in our hometown, and once again, coach and teammate. And so their service in law enforcement was a family business. They wore blue in and around the streets of my hometown of Teaneck, New Jersey, and they wore yellow and gold on the baseball field as coach and teammate for my beloved Teaneck Lancers. I was raised in this baseball community where officers were volunteer coaches and where teammates would later become officers. They understood the power of sports in its ability to break down barriers of bias, to see the community as one team while working together to progress and unity. Those officers would later take on and look after my family, because I played a long time and I traveled. My father became sick and my mom ended up sort of doing it on her own. And so with all his illnesses and my brother being away, the local police department, because I was their teammate, became part of her life. And they were students of hers. She was a teacher at the high school. So they came around and they would honor her. And later, when my father passed away, they all came in full uniform. They showed up. And we had to by shock, after walking out of the service in the church, walked out and saw a police procession escorting the hearse and going to the burial site. So those were my teammates. So that was my experience with law enforcement. And so when I had this experience that I'll share with you in Connecticut, it informed what I saw as the opportunity to be able to work on solutions, because I was coming from a place with high expectations, because I had this positive experience with police officers that were my teammates, that were my coaches in our community, and in some cases my mom's students. So it was this foundation that shaped how I would respond when an out-of-town officer out of West Hartford came into Hartford while I was shoveling my driveway. And it was a freezing day in 2014. So while I was shoveling, he approached me and asked me what seemed to be a very straightforward and simple question, which was, are you trying to shovel snow? Excuse me, move that. Just didn't want to lose that real quick. So his question was, are you trying to make money shoveling other people's driveway? So that was the question. So it started that way. Now, of course, I'm completely thrown off, because now I felt like something was kind of robbed from me, right? You know that feeling, right? That feeling of, wait a minute, now this is my property, right? I'm standing in my driveway, but now I feel like I'm not safe. I'm feeling like something's wrong. I don't even know, because I had no information at this exchange. But I also was able to lean in that moment of like, wait a minute, I have all these other experiences that inform how this should go, right? And I think that's a big part of it, the expectation of what could be different. And if you don't give people different perspectives or other experiences, then you lean into the bias. You lean into sort of the pattern that you recognize, because you're only in that ecosystem of that experience. And I was fortunate to have this to lean on, to then demand and insist a better outcome, a different approach. And also to be able to empathize in some level of what is an officer's job? What was he actually dealing with that day? What did I not know about this? And that's where the storytelling came into play. So once I got through this idea of, okay, I have to recuperate over this and think about what this means, I felt like something was missing, but there was something to be gained. So through my supportive family and friends, I saw an opportunity to trust what I learned from my positive experiences with police and transition and come to this issue with high expectations through knowledge, and this exchange could have gone differently, which it should have. But I could also explore how this interaction could have balanced his urgency for his job with my personal dignity. And I was someone who gained from an expectation that a community and this interaction should have gone differently and could go differently, but we have to share this story. And so how could he know me? He didn't know me. How would he know me? Different community, different experiences. They learn, and you learn each other by telling stories. And this is where I want to lean into the power. So the next 2 years, I worked on legislation, and Matt Ritter actually worked on it with me. And I learned the true power of storytelling. I met a number of people who allowed me to share it, but soon I learned how reciprocal that experience was for everyone involved. I spoke to officers and chiefs, public defenders, education administrators, neighbors, legislators, and I had the privilege of the time to do that. And let's underscore that, that's important as well. And I found I was listening to their stories as much as my own. And I started to understand what the officers are dealing with, what were their circumstances, and that empathy mattered. And so it led to a law being passed to clarify an existing understanding in the language of the law about jurisdiction. But this solution came about because of the extensive input, so many people in the community who wanted to find a workable and satisfactory outcome. They listened to each other, and we shared our story. So I just want to underscore the power of storytelling. Storytelling brings us together into common listening sessions where ideas are exchanged, facts are checked, and parties gain the power of what happens when we listen to each other. Storytelling informs through all languages of communication, which yields better decision-making, serving as evidence of being in tune with constituents, citizens, and just all people. It serves and starts as a singular expression, but it's stitched together with what we have in common. Baseball, parenting, ownership, dog lovers, pride, love, whatever, everything that makes us human. It allows us to appreciate that the person impacted has the best voice in the choir. Give them that respect. They will move us and fuel us for the inspiration needed to change what we do next. Storytelling opens the door to collaboration so that everyone is invested in the outcome. And I've learned this, but I got appointed by Governor Lamont on the Police Officer Standards and Training Council. And it's been one of the most productive and positive experiences because they get to work. And you see the collaboration in the room because you're moved by the fact that what endures is when a diverse set of stakeholders come together around a solution. They will remember the goodwill. You invest in the outcome, and they will afford respect to each other. So the next time there's an extra beat of patience. There's something that you'll afford respect to each other. There's something that will force you to think differently about each other's circumstance. And then you'll start to trust in the work. And that's what the police council has shown me, that here's the work to be done. We're on the same team. And it wasn't so much that there's a perfect law or a perfect policy. And you talk about housing, right? It's very challenging, right, to figure out there's no perfect solution. But what you do find is when you have these collaborators, they invest in the outcome. And then you have that trust, you will continue to work, as opposed to like, okay, here's the answer. It's solutions. And empathy. You're telling that story, you find that you're not alone, that so many people relate to you, even those that may have failed you. It restores that optimism. And lastly, it gives room to see ourselves in each other. It's powerful. Building block of an equitable community that's fair and understanding. So in close, I learned to serve my community, and it's certainly in memory of Eugene and Glenn O'Reilly, teammates, coaches. They served with respect and unwavering faith in our shared humanity, but they live on through the power of storytelling, a critical ingredient to civic change, and all it asks of us is to share, and soon we will listen all the way to enacting change.
Thank you. Still feels like your first at bat with that. Thank you for sharing that story. That's very much a part of why we came up with the power of civics. The last thing you want to do when something is impacting you personally or your family or in your neighborhood, time might be of the essence, and you don't want to just start figuring out how can I make my voice heard? How can I make a change? So the power of civics is meant to teach everyone these basics so that when something does happen, you know how to turn it into a positive experience. I'm very happy to be joined by a former Secretary of the State, once a civic champion, always a civic champion. Our Lieutenant Governor has been a civic champion in every way that matters for a long time, from being a leader in the early voting initiatives, all the way down to encouraging more women to run for office or get involved in Connecticut's boards and commissions, another important civic action. So with no further ado, Lieutenant Governor Bysiewicz.
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the launch of this platform, because we are at this moment when our democracy is under attack. It's under attack today, but it's been under attack every day since the founding of our country. And it is important to know about civics, because you cannot practice civics if you don't understand it. And that's why when I was Secretary of the State, I worked with legislative partners to make sure that there is a half a credit civics requirement in the curriculum for high school students. So you can't graduate from high school without that half credit of civics to get the basics, theoretically speaking, about how to be an engaged and informed citizen. This platform is going to be great for everyone, for young people, for older people, and everyone in between. Everybody probably needs a refresher. I will say this, that getting involved with a community organization is absolutely the way to make a difference. I just came from the New Hallville neighborhood, where we were announcing an $8 million grant to clean up environmental pollution that's been in that neighborhood for decades. And this $8 million Community Investment Fund grant is going to help clean up homes where literally the foundations are sinking into the ground because they were built upon industrial pollution in a redlined neighborhood. So what happened? Well, active women in a community organization started talking to their town council people, started talking to their legislators, and it took several years, but today was the announcement that that funding will be there and that each homeowner can finally get the redress that they deserve. So it underscores the power of community organizations in making change. Stephanie mentioned boards and commissions. I feel really strongly about that because I passed the law that required secretaries of the state to disclose who's on boards and commissions, how many women, how many men, how many people of color. And sadly, we still have not achieved parity to reflect the population and the diversity of Connecticut. So if you would like to help with so many different areas of government, you mentioned police accountability and police and law enforcement standards. That's one area. There's education, there's environment, there's healthcare. There literally are 400 boards and commissions. So if you would like to be involved, send me your resume, send the governor your resume. Trust me, we can find a way to engage you in the important process of government, and you will see how your time and talent can make a difference. Also, I think it's really important now, as we are a week away from local elections. Every town in the state is having a local election. If you feel you don't know enough about the candidates, just show up to a polling place on election day. They'll all be there. You can meet them, you can talk with them. I also like to encourage people to run for office, especially when I see people who are leading in their communities. Well, lots of them are women, but lots of them don't think about running for office. But who's the person who's coaching the soccer team, leading the book club, the president of the PTA? Every time I see an engaged community leader, and usually they're women, I say, hey, you should run for council, mayor, fill in the blank, because I firmly believe that the federal government would not be shut down today if there were 50% women in the United States Congress. Just saying.
Just saying.
Also, if you've not registered to vote, don't worry, we got you. Just show up to a polling place. Early voting is happening up through November 2nd, and you can also go to a polling place on November 4th to participate in the elections. I will say this, I have been thrilled to see the participation in Connecticut in all of these rallies that have been held around the state. Democracy has been a big topic. Here's the shocking thing to put a point on why this power of civics is important. So a friend of mine, Mike Paul, hosted a rally, a No Kings rally in Manchester. 600 people signed up. Doing the diligence that he does as a leader of a party committee in his town, he immediately looked to see how many of the 600 people showed up to vote in the last town election. How many do you think? Out of the 600? 200. 200. People took time to show up to a rally to talk about democracy. Good. But action step number 2 is show up to vote in the municipal elections that are happening in over this week. Because how many times have you heard people say, well, if we're going to have an election next year or the following year, well, the best way, as John Lewis has said, to protect our democracy is to vote. It is precious, and it is the most powerful tool that we have in a nonviolent way to protect and to preserve our democracy. So, Stephanie, thank you for giving us another tool in the toolbox. And I have a citation from the governor, who couldn't be here. He's a bit under the weather, but I was happy to step up to be part of this. And it is an official statement that says, whereas on October 27th, 1787, the first of the Federalist Papers were published, laying the groundwork for the United States Constitution and sparking a national conversation about the responsibilities and rights of the people in a representative democracy. Whereas civic learning doesn't only happen in classrooms, it happens in town halls, libraries, workplaces, places of worship, and around kitchen tables, wherever and whenever people come together to ask questions, share ideas, and take positive action to better their communities. Whereas the Office of the Secretary of the State has made civic education a top priority, working with partners and developing tools and programs that help people across Connecticut become more civically involved in their communities, including the Civically Engaged Organization CEO program, Civics 101, Next Gen Elections, Red, White, and Blue Schools, Voice CT, Democracy Cup, and the launch of the Power of Civics, Learn It, Use It, Share It, a new online learning platform designed for everyone who wants to better understand our representative democracy, how it works, and how they can have a voice in it. And so, we have a couple more whereases, but it ends with, Ned Lamont or Susan stepping in for Ned Lamont, do hereby officially proclaim October 27th as Connecticut Civics Education Day in the state of Connecticut. That was a lot. Thank you. Okay.
Yes. Many whereases. I'm glad you mentioned the election. One of the things we also feel strongly about in our office, people often think that voting is the beginning and the end of their civic engagement, but it really is the beginning. And the power of civics is really about everything that happens in the other 364 days of the year. Before I turn this over to a colleague to walk us through a demonstration, Representative Brown, would you like to say a few words? We have a real-life civics teacher here, so.
Thank you, and thank you, Secretary, for the opportunity. I will take any time and opportunity to speak about the importance of civics. As was mentioned, while I serve in the legislature representing Vernon's 56th district, more importantly, my day job is as a high school civics teacher at Cret Compsci High School in Enfield. And I've spent the better part of 2 decades trying to engage young people in this very process. And everything that was said today couldn't be more true. That if you educate and you teach the importance of participating in your community, you're developing the next generation of leaders in your community. We won't be finding ourselves stretching to find people to run for office or to fill seats on boards and commissions if we are intentional about educating for it. So I couldn't be more excited for this platform and to have worked with the Secretary of the State's office in chairing the Civics Education Engagement and Media Literacy Task Force over the last 1.5 years. Because this work is important, and I will sing that from the rooftops as many chances as I can get, that we have to be intentional. Democracy is precious, and in the words of Ben Franklin at the conclusion of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, we were given a republic if we can keep it. And so it's on us to teach that forward so that we can keep it. So thank you again, and I'm excited for this platform.
Perfect. Thank you. And now our guests can take a seat. I'm going to invite Ariana Roscoe, our Director of Outreach and Engagement, who spearheaded this program for our office, to give a quick demonstration of how it works. And again, I just like to underscore, everything starts with our young people, but civics and how we engage can change from year to year. So it's really important that people understand that this platform is designed for anyone of any age, whether they are able to vote or not, whether they have 5 minutes or 5 years to work on this. So I hope people will log in and sign on. And Ariane, back then. And then I'll answer questions if we have any. Yeah.
Thank you. So you're going to start on our website, which is powerofcivics.ct.gov, and you'll find a link there to the actual training. Once you come to this screen, you'll want to register and create your own account, which is great because it'll allow you to log in and out at your leisure when you're able to come back to the course. It will be tracking your progress as you go. So you'll log in and find the courses. We have 6 different we have 6 different sections which are listed here, and they can be accessed in any order. And we designed it specifically that way so that whatever information you need right now, you can have access to. We encourage you to start with the Welcome and Introduction to Government because it does give you a nice foundation to how government works. I'm going to click on Engage with Community, and you can see a list of all the lessons that we have on the side here. So the different lessons, you see this one starts with a video. They're all formatted in different ways. You may need to read certain segments, videos, a lot of interactive types of lessons. And as we scroll down the list of the lessons here, you'll see different activities. And the activities are kind of designed as like mini quizzes so that you're reinforcing the information as you go and kind of testing your knowledge. Once you complete each lesson, the lesson is marked as completed, and once you complete all the lessons in the section is marked as completed. Once all 6 sections are completed, our office will send you an email, the certificate of completion for your work, but you'll always have access to the course and can go back and use it as a resource at any time.
Perfect, thank you. 2 of our interns from last year. I love it. Any questions? Yes.
Hi. I am curious about this in a moment when civics education has become politicized increasingly. Specifically, we've seen the Trump administration calling civics education too liberal in many cases and trying to change that. And I'm curious if this was on your mind when you were creating this program.
Yeah, thank you for the question. I think anyone who tries to politicize civics doesn't understand what it is. Civics in its purest form is getting engaged with your community. I think it's what most of us are taught when we're this high, how to give back and how to make your community better, whether it's your neighborhood, your town, your state, your country. It's important to know, so I've been secretary almost 3 years, and I ran on a platform of civic education and civic engagement because when I was a state representative, I was shocked how few people knew how the process worked. For example, they would call me in March saying, I have a great idea for a bill, can you pitch it? And I'm like, that deadline passed 2 months ago. Or a really important topic would come up, and I would legitimately want to hear from people on both sides of the aisle, and I represented 3 towns with different constituencies, so I was looking for input, but I would get an email from 3 people, and I thought, this is not how a representative democracy is designed to work. We, the people, have to help our representatives understand how to represent us well. And when I gave speeches like that, people started saying, like, you know what, you're right. I do have opinions. I would like to get involved, but I have no idea how it works because either one, I only took this one class when I was in high school and now I'm 65 and it was a long time ago, or I never took civics at all. So we started making this list back in 2023. I think most people understand we have very little budget for public education in our office. So my colleague Ariana and I, in conjunction with everything we heard in communities around the state, started taking notes on what we thought people could do absent going back to college to learn these things. And this is how the power of civics was born. For me, my approach to this work is always about people, not politics, and I believe everyone wants to have agency in their own life and understand how they can make things better. Any other questions? I'll try not to give so long a speech. I'm very passionate about civics. Yes?
I can also grab you afterwards for better sound, but like, a lot of this seems almost like coursework. I guess, like, could you walk us through like the thought process behind, like, I guess making this as engaging as possible with people who may not necessarily be engaging with this on their free time in any case?
Sure. So this started as a PDF, which was a lot to read, and I found that no one, even myself, when I was proofreading it, wanted to read it. So we thought, how can we make this more fun? And we thought making it interactive, as my colleague explained, some of it is in video, some of it is audio, a lot of it are interactive quizzes. I think civics is fun. We definitely have some foundational technical elements, like what's the glossary that legislators use, for example. But then we have very accessible things. How do you become a poll worker if you're interested? Or how can you invite a legislator to coffee to share your ideas? It really runs the gamut. So I encourage everyone to take a look and run through the modules. It certainly is not meant to be boring. I hate boring things.
Can I
Sure.
just say one thing?
Yeah.
So the cool thing about all of these suggestions is if you actually do one of these things, you will immediately be engaged. Like one of the things was how to get involved with a political party. Trust me, if you show up, and it doesn't matter, it's a Republican town committee meeting or a Democratic town committee meeting, you will, if you stay 5 minutes, they're going to ask you to run for office, work at the poll, get involved, write a letter to the editor, and even just at this press conference that I was at, where the new Hallville funding was being announced, one of the women on the new Hallville organization said, you know, I got involved in the meetings because of the issues, but I stayed because of the people. So the cool thing about engagement, when we, you know, our past Surgeon General said we have a loneliness crisis in our country, the fun thing is just pick one of those things, and all of a sudden you're going to have like a friend group, an extended family.
Yes.
I mean, any of those things will engage you in
100%.
the community, which is just so cool. So I
No, it
couldn't
is
resist
cool.
putting that in there.
And, you know, it sounds boring. We always struggle with how to get people involved. And trick them into thinking it's something more fun than, like, people hear civics and they think, oh, I'm going to be reading the Declaration of Independence. But it's a lot more accessible than that. And what we have found is that when we share this knowledge, people feel empowered, and they didn't realize they had these opportunities. They don't always realize that they could go to any town meeting or go on YouTube and access all the meetings of the legislature. People have found it empowering. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm curious how you expect people to find the tool if you have partnerships with universities or workplaces or things like that.
Sure. So that is always our challenge without an outreach budget. By doing a press conference, we hope that that will bring some attention. But over the last 3 years, we have built partnerships with everything from our civically engaged organizations, which represent businesses, nonprofits, foundations, and even some towns, to organizations that have reached out to us trying to share civic knowledge with their population, whether it's the Connecticut Bar Association or the realtors who want to tell newcomers in their town how to get involved. We have partnerships with over 600-700 organizations at this point, and we do it the grassroots old school way. We send them emails with a link and I go out and speak to many people. I try to meet communities where they are, so we hope that all of these actions together will help spread the word. Any other questions? Great. Thank you all for coming.